Feel better? A little bit. What is up, Finn fans? Tell by the title of this video. I'm the Dolphins. Turn the sucker around. I don't know. I wrote that down on my notebook. I don't know if that's what I'm going to title it. Maybe I'll title it Miami Dolphins need to bounce back. Miami Dolphins need to prove that they are the captains of their own ship. I don't know. But what I do know is I'm going to talk a little bit, dive. This is a little combo of a deep dive and a kind of goose farbage, a little, for everybody. Because some people are already losing their minds over the loss to the I almost said the Atlanta Falcons. The San Francisco 49ers. Good team. We lost. Bad game for Tua. I'm going to talk about that. But yeah, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to look at the playoff standings. We're going to look at the rest of the Dolphins schedule. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to assess everything, and we'll go from there. So let's look at stats real quick. Tua Tagovailoa at this point in the season, 2,859 yards. Fantastic. 12th in the NFL, 21 touchdowns. Fantastic. 6th in the NFL, 5 interceptions. Went up by 2 for obvious reasons. 68.1 completion percentage. He dropped down to 4th in the NFL, but his passer rating of 112 is still number 1 in the NFL. His attempted air yards of 9.4 average is 4th in the NFL. His completed air yards of 8.4 are 2nd in the NFL. So that Mamma Jam throws the ball down the field. There's no more dink and dunk to it. Tyreek Hill, 1,379 yards, number 1 in the NFL. His 5 touchdowns are tied for 6th in the NFL. Jalen Waddle, 972 receiving yards, is 5th in the NFL. His 6 touchdowns are tied for 5th in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins, as of right now, are 2nd in the NFL in first downs with 173 first downs. And on the defensive side, the Dolphins have the 8th best rush defense, the 21st best pass defense. They are 16th in the NFL in sacks with 29, and they are 17th in the NFL with first downs given up. So again, the defense is very mid, especially you have the 8th best rush defense. You held Christian McCaffrey to what, 60-something yards? He obviously was all over the pass game, but other than that, and a lot of that had to do with screens and really bad coverage on Duke Riley on a wheel route. And I'll break that down in the film breakdown tomorrow. But the defense isn't too bad. And taking a step back, taking a breath, looking at everything, the defense, I feel like, could have taken a little bit of a breather if the offense was moving the ball more. There was a lot of situations, especially with the 2 interceptions, that the defense had to go right back on the field. And they still held them to a field goal, right, on those 2 interceptions. The Dolphins' defense actually did decent for what they had to deal with. And I know a lot of people are coming out and saying the Dolphin defense made Purdy look really good and blah, blah, blah. They got 4 sacks on him. People forget that Trent Williams is their left tackle. They have a very good offensive line. The Dolphin defense still shut down the run. And obviously the Christian McCaffrey run at the end that kind of got him that field goal kind of sealed the game for them. But for the most part of the game, the Dolphins were shutting down the run. Christian McCaffrey was not doing anything in the run game. Their run game was kind of non-existent. They were forced to dink and dunk. Also, the pressure that the Dolphins were getting on Purdy was forcing them to throw screens, which were helping them, end arounds to Deebo Samuel, short slants, and all that stuff. So the pressure was getting there, and Purdy was getting in his face. It just so happens Shanahan had the answer to that. We tend to forget Kyle Shanahan is a good offensive coordinator. He knows how to make these changes. He taught Mike McDaniel what he knows. So he could sit there and kind of draw up how to stop Mike McDaniel. So that's the other thing we got to sit back and think about. This was a good game by the 49ers on all aspects, from the coaching to everything, because of that situation. But you don't want to take too much away from the defense. A lot of field goals, a lot of punts. If the offense would have took advantage of the possessions they had, and if Tua would have made the passes that were open that he attempted, honestly, I think this would have been a different game. The Dolphin defense plays different with the lead, and if the Dolphins come out hot, throw a 75-yard touchdown, we take the lead, hold the opposing, the 49ers to a field goal. We come back out, we march down the field. Worst case, kick a field goal. We're up by 7 still, And it's that answer. You know how we did against the Bears, against the Lions, against the... I think those are the only teams we really went back and forth with. The other ones, we kind of took the lead away. But the answering, you need to answer back. You need to answer back. Especially if you looked at the Ravens game in the second half. They would score, we would answer. They would score, we would answer. Then we'd score, and then all of a sudden we took the lead. There was no answering from our offense, right? And that's where all of a sudden people started looking at the defense saying, you guys are sucking wind. And I'll take credit for that. I did at some point, got really frustrated with the defense. But my frustration kind of came from calling blitzes at the wrong time. There was a lot of time they were playing very soft. They were only sending 3. And I'm like, you can't do that. You can't give any quarterback enough time, especially when he has the weapons of Christian McCaffrey and Kittle and Deebo Samuel to throw the ball to. So that's where that came in. Talk about Tua Tagovailoa, right? Everyone's already doing their thing, saying like, Tua's garbage, I told you, he actually plays a good team and he can't do well. Apparently the Ravens and the Bills aren't good teams. So, Bills are number 1 in the AFC playoff standings and the Ravens are number 3, but they're not good teams. Tua didn't beat them, and Tua didn't, throw for how many touchdowns? 6 touchdowns against them. Yeah, they're not good teams. He doesn't do well against good teams. But it's one bad game. What you need to do, and this is what the whole consensus of the video is, you got to bounce back from it, right? I went this season alone, because I could go for however long and point out really good quarterbacks having bad games, right? And I went through this season. I'm like, let me pick 4 guys, 2 that are in the same draft class as Tua, and 2 that are kind of in the MVP category talk as Tua. Is that still a thing? I don't know. But if he keeps playing like he did the other 5 games for the rest of the next 5 games, then possibly. So Patrick Mahomes against the Buffalo Bills, he threw for 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 85.2 passer rating. Kind of the same game as Tua, and he lost. Josh Allen versus the Jets, 205 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 46.8 passer rating. Justin Herbert against the same San Francisco 49ers team. He threw for 196, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He had a 73 passer rating. Joe Burrow versus the Steelers in week 1, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 61.7 passer rating. So again, you're not going to play perfect year round. You're going to have a bad game. It happens. But to come out here, and it's a very small minority, but there are, and it kind of makes me sick that people sat back and they waited, right? Steelers game. It's not that bad of a game. Okay. Lions game. He actually did pretty well. Bears game. He did pretty well. Browns game. He did pretty well. When is he going to have that bad game so I can come out and rub it in people's faces? Texans game. And they took him out in the halftime. He was doing... 49ers game. There it is. I told you to. It's like they waited in the shadows for one bad game to pop out and say, I called it. I knew this was going to happen. It was inevitable this was going to happen. And the sad thing is, some, and again, it's a small minority, are Dolphin fans. Like, they were waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, why? It makes no sense to me at all that they would do that. But it happens. It happens all the time. The number 1 quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, had a horrible game. Well, not horrible, but he had just as bad of a game against the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen had a worse game against the Jets. It happens. For us to sit here and take everything he's done so far and throw it in the garbage because he had one bad game where he was off is nonsense. And we need to take a step back and stop being ridiculous. That being said, the next 5 games, screw the next 5 games. The next 2 games are pivotal. And you know what? Tua knows that. Because he came out in his post-press conference, don't think we're going to take this lightly. So Tua knows, the Miami Dolphins know, this was a game that you can come out on the national stage, not really long because it wasn't shown around the United States, and show everyone that, hey, we can hang with the best of them. They ain't taking it lightly. So they need to bounce back big time. And these next 2 games are pivotal. Absolutely pivotal. Let me minimize myself real quick. And I'm going to show you right now the playoff standings, right? So this is the playoff standings for the AFC. Fortunately, if Miami would have won, they would be the number 1 seed because they would have had the tiebreaker over Kansas City. I think with conference record, I don't know. But it would have been number 1 seed with a loss to Kansas City. But the Dolphins right now are sitting at 6. And if Cincinnati overtakes Baltimore as the division leader, then the Dolphins would go up to 5 because they have the tiebreaker with the Baltimore Ravens. So right now the Dolphins are sitting at 6. And if we look at the Dolphins' schedule, for the rest of the games, we got the Sunday night game against Los Angeles. Then we're in Buffalo. We don't know what time or day that's going to be played. I wouldn't be surprised if they flex that to Saturday night because I think the Sunday night game is already set in stone. But we're playing Sunday night against the Chargers, then undetermined for Buffalo, and then we're home for Green Bay, at New England, home for the Jets, and that game's also to be determined what time, 1-4 night game, whatever it is. Pivotal that the Miami Dolphins win the next 2 games. If they beat the Chargers, which it's not out of the norm to beat the Chargers, they lost to the Raiders. Yeah, that's just who they lost to. I'm like, did they just lose to the Raiders? Also the Raiders. And Justin Herbert was looking not too great. They got a ton of pressure on him, all that stuff. Then all of a sudden this Buffalo game is for the division. Because we'd be in the same... If we beat the Buffalo Bills, again, if we beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, huge if, because it's going to be a very hard cold weather game, especially if it's at night. Can Tua do it? This is the bigger question than San Fran is, can they do it? Can they pull this off in Buffalo in the cold? Then they have the tiebreaker. They swept them. And they have the front driver, front seat, whatever you want to call it, to win the division. They just got to beat Green Bay, got to beat New England. Those 2 teams are very beatable, and you got to beat the Jets at home. That's also another very beatable game. But essentially what the Miami Dolphins have to do is they just got to take care of business. They got to bounce back. They got to look at themselves in the mirror, show that they're not the team that they put on the field against the San Francisco 49ers, especially on offense. Again, I'm very adamant that if the offense was moving and if Tua was making the throws and if things were happening, then I honestly think that game would have went differently. Because the last second fumble is why it's 33. It should be, without that last second fumble from Tua, they picked it up and scored. It's 26-17. They were down by 9. At one point, they were down by 6. Dolphin defense couldn't make the stop to give the Dolphins a second chance. But also, 4th and 2, the pass to Gesicki. He kept, we were so close to either tying or taking the lead. If Gesicki catches that pass, or if the pass was thrown to anywhere else, we were so close. It's not like this game was out of reach. It's not like this was a blowout. So very close. So that just shows that the Dolphins can hang with these teams. They can. We were forcing punts. We were forcing field goals instead of touchdowns on defense against a good San Francisco team. The offense just needed to click. And again, these next 2 games are pivotal. So the season's not over. Worst case scenario, we get in as a wild card. And I honestly think that the Dolphins will get in as a wild card. Best case scenario, we win the division. It is a very good possibility. Not saying it's going to happen, not saying whatever. Got to take care of business. These next 2 games are more important now that we lost to San Fran. If we didn't lose to San Fran, Buffalo's more important than LA. But now you can't go 1-2 on this road trip. You can't go 0-3. So now it's incredibly, incredibly important to bounce back. But again, just to recap, 1 bad game. Let's take a breath and not crucify somebody for 1 bad game. Defense actually did pretty well. The offensive line, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. They did well. They gave Tua time. It was just, he was in his head. I don't know what's up with him. Hopefully he bounces back. Hopefully, he turns it around. But this is big. The stretch is big. It's humongous. And now it's on primetime against the Chargers in LA. Now everyone's going to see Justin Herbert versus Tua Part 2. Dolphins took the first match. Can they take the second match? And I expect a lot of Dolphin fans to be there because there's a lot of Dolphin fans on that West Coast. So this might even be a home game for Miami with the crowd. But I will see you guys tomorrow in the film breakdown. But be sure to comment below. Let me know what you think of the stats I gave you. Let me know what you think of everything I had to say about Tua, about the way the team played yesterday, and the future of the team. I'm going to continue doing the recaps. You guys seem to like it, and I'm going to keep you guys updated. The closer we get to the playoffs, I'll start doing playoff simulation to see what needs to happen where and how and what. But other than that, guys, I'll see you tomorrow in the film breakdown. But like usual, stay classy. Our friends up.